He was a boy born into wealth, the millionaire's son, but he couldn't walk. Doctors had given up hope until a quiet maid made a choice that would change everything. What she did wasn't just about healing. It challenged a world built on walls no one dared to break. How far would she risk going to save a life that society had already written off? This isn't just a story about one child. It's a story about courage, injustice, and a truth many try to hide. What happens when the powerless hold the key to change? It was a sprawling estate nestled on the edge of the city, a world away from the crowded streets beyond its gates. The millionaire's son, Julian, lived in comfort few could imagine. Surrounded by luxury, he was loved but trapped by a cruel twist of fate. He couldn't walk. Doctors had tried everything, yet his small world remained confined to a wheelchair. Every day felt the same: quiet rooms, polite visitors, and the distant hum of life outside. But beneath the polished surface, something was stirring, an invisible barrier far tougher than his condition. Little did anyone know, a single act of bravery was about to shatter more than just his limitations. Julian's days blended into a quiet routine, but beneath the surface, tension simmered like a storm waiting to break. The mansion was a fortress of privilege, but it was also a place where invisible lines were drawn, lines no one dared to cross. The staff, mostly from the nearby neighborhoods where life was harsher and opportunities scarce, moved like shadows through the grand halls, their presence barely acknowledged. Among them was Rosa, the maid who had worked at the estate for years. She was no stranger to the subtle barriers, never invited to sit with the family during meals, always called by her first name, but never truly seen as part of their world. Yet Rosa had a fierce heart and an unyielding spirit. Julian's condition had made his family protective, maybe overly so. Doctors had given up on miracles, resigning him to a life confined within walls and wheels. But Rosa saw something others didn't, a spark in Julian's eyes, a hunger to break free. It was during one of her quiet moments cleaning his room that she dared to ask if she could try something, an old remedy from her grandmother, something she had seen work in her own community. The family's initial reaction was sharp and cold. They dismissed Rosa's idea, not out of skepticism alone, but because of where it came from. Their world didn't mix with hers. She was just the help, and Julian was their fragile heir. But Rosa's resolve didn't waver. Late nights, when the estate was silent, she began working with Julian. Slow, careful movements, gentle encouragement, and an unwavering belief in what seemed impossible. The changes were small at first, twitches, a shaky balance, but they grew. Julian's hope blossomed alongside his strength. Yet every breakthrough deepened the chasm between Rosa and the family. Whispers spread among the staff and the family alike. Why was the maid meddling where she didn't belong? Who gave her the right? One afternoon, when Julian took his first unsteady step without the wheelchair, the family's reaction was a mix of awe and anger. They weren't ready to share this victory with someone they considered beneath them. Rosa was reprimanded, threatened with losing her job. The walls of the mansion, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage closing in on her. But Rosa's courage only grew. She saw in Julian's progress a chance to confront the unspoken rules of their world, a chance to expose the quiet racism that shaped their lives. Yet danger loomed. If the family's wrath was one threat, the wider community's prejudices were another. Could a maid truly rewrite the story of a millionaire's son? Could one act of boldness break the chains of a lifetime? As the tension reached a breaking point, every step Julian took became more than just a physical victory. It became a symbol of defiance, hope, and the fight for dignity in a world built on inequality. But the question remained: how far would those in power go to keep the status quo? The answer was about to reveal itself in a way no one expected. The day Julian took his first full step without support, the air inside the mansion crackled with a mix of awe and tension. For a moment, hope seemed to bloom, a fragile, beautiful thing. But it didn't last. The family's reaction was swift and merciless. What they saw wasn't a miracle. It was a threat to their carefully guarded world. Rosa, the maid who had dared to cross invisible lines, was dragged before the family patriarch. Their words were sharp, laced with resentment and fear disguised as authority. They accused her of overstepping, of undermining their control. The old prejudices, deep, unspoken, and poisonous, were laid bare. Rose's bravery was met not with gratitude, but with hostility. She was fired on the spot, told to leave before her place was forgotten. Julian watched, powerless, his heart breaking. The boy who had found hope in Rose's hands now faced the cruel reality of the world they lived in. His first steps, a symbol of progress and resilience, were drowned by the cold walls of racism and privilege. As Rosa packed her few belongings, her eyes met Julian's one last time, a silent promise that this was not the end. Outside the mansion gates, she was met with whispers and stares, the weight of judgment pressing down like a storm. But beneath the pain, a fire ignited. This was no longer just about a boy's ability to walk. It was about breaking chains far heavier than physical ones. The real battle was just beginning. What would Julian do now, trapped between a world that tried to hold him down and the courage Rosa sparked in his soul? The answer would change everything. Julian never forgot Rosa's courage, the quiet defiance that shattered the walls built around him. Though she was forced to leave, her impact remained. With every step he took afterward, he carried the weight of her belief and the sting of the injustice that tried to silence it. The mansion's halls grew colder, the family's pride bruised, but the seed of change had been planted. Julian began to speak out quietly, challenging the old prejudices he had once accepted as truth. His journey wasn't just about walking. It became a journey toward understanding, empathy, and the fight against the invisible barriers that keep so many locked in place. Rosa's story is not unique. Across the world, countless acts of bravery by those deemed lesser have challenged systems of power and racism. It's a reminder that change often begins in the most unexpected places, fueled by the courage to stand up against injustice, no matter the cost. So, what happens when the powerless choose to act? When walls built on fear and hate start to crumble beneath the weight of truth? Julian's story asks us to look beyond the surface, to see the humanity in each other, regardless of status or color. The question remains, how many more roses will it take before the world truly listens? Before the barriers come down, and every child, no matter where they come from, can step freely into their future? The fight against racism is far from over. But in every step forward, there is hope. What step will you take today? If Julian's story moved you, if Rosa's courage inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video to help others see the power of bravery and the need to break down walls of injustice. And if you want more stories that challenge, inspire, and shine light on the truths we all need to face, hit that subscribe button and join us on this journey. Because change begins when we listen and act together. What will your next step be?